Okay, today we're talking about OpenAI and their O1 model versus DeepSeek and their R1 thinking model and how they compare. Now, you've probably already heard about DeepSeek because the internet's kind of blowing up right now. Nvidia stock has crashed because of it. But I just want to talk to you about some of the myths and kind of the mystique around the DeepSeek model and kind of clarify a few things. And first of all, DeepSeek built something, a thinking model, super quickly with way less money and less powerful GPU NVIDIA chips or however they built them. And everyone is super pumped about them. But I think there's a little bit of misleading information around DeepSeek and what it actually does and how you can use it. So I just want to talk a little bit about the differences between OpenAI's O1 model and DeepSeek and their R1 model and how to use them and how you might want to incorporate them in software or however you might want to use them in the future because it's not as easy to understand if you just try, you hear about it on the internet but you haven't tried it yet. So I think the best way to do it is just learning a few of the differences and then jumping into some examples. So let's first talk about DeepSeek R1 versus the OpenAI O1 model and why DeepSeek is really cool and everyone's excited about it. And DeepSeek R1 is free to use just like OpenAI and the chatbot. So their thinking model is free. And you can use it just like how you log into ChatGPT, put in a prompt, and then use a very powerful thinking model for free. So it's really incredible. You should definitely check it out at deepseek.com. Another thing is incredibly different is how cheap the API is compared to OpenAI's. And really, that just means that you can embed it into other software applications and it's much cheaper to use and embed their kind of technology into other stuff. It's way cheaper. We'll get into some details in a minute, but that's the main point. And the next thing is DeepSeek is open source. And we'll explain a little bit about what that means and why that is important because I've been seeing a lot about how cool it is. You can even download it and use it on your computer locally completely for free. And you don't even need to be connected to the internet. Okay. And let's just talk about the API cost. And if you're not sure what that means, it's just a way of connecting um, DeepSeek or OpenAI to other software so you can use them and embed the chatbot or whatever you're using, whatever the tools are, the AI functionality into a software application. It might not be that interesting to you if you're not a software developer, but the costs are completely different. And I actually even asked ChatGPT's their 4.0 search model to tell me the differences and give me an example of what they think the costs might be. So they said, for a real example, they said the total cost for something that was comparable would be $1.65 versus $12.50 for OpenAI's O1 model. So that's even according to ChatGPT, they're saying it was 7.5 times cheaper than OpenAI's O1 model. So this isn't hype. This is directly even from ChatGPT. I asked them and I was surprised that they even said a real use case could be around this much difference. Now, there's a lot of little, differences, uploads, downloads, and a lot of variables that can make the cost slightly different. But even they said for a lot of use cases that it could be around 7.5 times different. I've heard larger numbers like 27 times, but whatever. But that's still a massive difference. Okay, so next thing, the cool thing about DeepSeek's API is if you've already built software using OpenAI and you have an OpenAI API key, even according to ChatGPT, all you have to do is basically use the API key from DeepSeek and just put like basically a string of digits or a password almost into there and then a different URL or somewhere pointing to it, which is really a domain. In this case, it's api.deepseek.com/v1. And that's all you have to change. So it should work out of the box. So you don't have to change your software. You can test it to see if it works immediately. And it's not really going to, waste any time. It just might save you a lot of money depending on how you built your software. And we'll get into some use cases and where you might want to use this or try this out and where you might not want to use it. The next thing we're going to talk about if you actually wanted to try the DeepSeek R1 model locally. And this is a really cool idea if you can do it. And I've seen people on the internet saying, oh, build anything with DeepSeek R1 locally for free. And I thought that sounds amazing. But is that really a reasonable thing to consider? So I wanted to dig into a little bit about the specs and the requirements. And you really, though, if you want to do the full model of DeepSeek, which is the best one for R1, it's going to be 1.34 terabytes, which is massive. And a terabyte is, 1,000 gigabytes. And most computers, even the powerful ones, they often have only 1,000 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes in their hard drive. So if you don't have a massive computer, you won't even be able to fit it on there for the full model. And that's huge. And also you need something powerful to run it properly. But there are different models, like even a 3 gigabyte one, which you could easily fit on your computer, up to even 140 gigabytes. But it's a little bit misleading to say you can run it locally. You cannot run. Most people cannot run the largest one on their own computer, unfortunately. But I mean, you could still try it. One of my business partners for my software company did this with Llama on the few ones, like a few models ago. I think Llama 3.1, a few hundred gigabyte model, and it was massive on his computer. And he has like a $4,000 MacBook Pro, a very good computer, and he was able to do it. But even when he had to do some prompts, some of them took like 4.5 minutes to get a response from. So unless you have a really good graphics card or something else, you're going to have to store it somewhere differently. So yes, it is open source. You can download it also, but realistically, you're not going to use it on your computer unless you're using one of the smaller models, but they're not going to be as powerful as the O1 realistically. So you're going to have to put it on something like Hugging Face, which is a GPU inference place where you can essentially host these models to run, other LLMs like including Llama and other things. And again, this might not be interesting to you, but it's just if you're thinking about it or you're working in a software company or just curious about it, it's good to know the differences or wondering why people are so excited about this new model. And so, and you can run it still much cheaper on something like Hugging Face or somewhere where you can has a dedicated GPU that you can test this software with. And sometimes you can even get some free credits and access, but it's also expensive, but way cheaper than using the OpenAI model. And I'd be curious to see if it would compare to the DeepSeek model. Maybe that's also quite cheap. I'm going to have to try it. And the main differences between DeepSeek's API, of course, is it's much cheaper. But there are also other differences. So if you're not going to install it yourself locally or on Hugging Face, an API is really the only way to go. And it sounds like they're the same thing, but it's a little bit misleading because OpenAI also has it's much more expensive, but it also has a much more robust API. So you can do things like fine tuning, embeddings, and model image recognition. So you can really do way more stuff with it. And I think that's a little bit misleading. So, just to say that the API is much cheaper, yes, that's true, but you can't do everything with DeepSeek currently unless you use the open source model and have to do a lot of, configuration by yourself. And fine tuning is like when you train, you give the model new data and specific information to actually be built into a new model and then you can use, which you can actually do in OpenAI. So you can build, for example, a custom chatbot or something, upload information of your e-commerce store, for example, and even get it to have an FAQ, answer about your products and different things, and talk to it And basically, it becomes a new model of DeepSeek or OpenAI. And so that's why fine tunings are very important. And they don't talk about that not being available on DeepSeek, which it currently isn't. But of course, you can do it yourself with the open source model, but it'll take much more setting up. And as well as embeddings, that's another way to a computer kind of, or the models, the LLM store information so you can interact with. You can ask it questions about products like, how are my t-shirts? What do you think of it? And it will understand better in context what you're talking about, and things like that. And multi-model image models like DALL-E and even OCR, like text recognition, you can upload an image in OpenAI, but you can't do that in DeepSeek. So that's just a few differences about why you still might want to use OpenAI and their API currently, or you might want to use your own local version if you're a software developer. And the next thing, some of the differences, and we'll get into a little bit, and the DeepSeek API and when you might want to use it, it's cost effective. It excels in reasoning and math and programming, and you might use it for things like, budget sensitive projects and chat based interactions, as well as things like coding. It's amazing for. So, programming, reasoning. So, it's really powerful, but you're just going to have to find out a way to give it all the data yourself and not just rely necessarily on the API. But it's still super powerful, and you can still basically put and embed a chatbot in your software that's very powerful and use it very cheaply or just directly on the DeepSeek website. And if you're wondering where you might want to use the OpenAI API in comparison, even though it's much more costly, this is even again from directly from ChatGPT. They said DeepSeek would be amazing at the math and the other reasonings. And it says really the Open API, the strengths are how versatile it is, and the advanced features, as mentioned, like fine tunings and embeddings. And the ideal use cases are diverse AI needs, such as AI image generation and complex data analysis. So, again, this is a little bit different. And we'll give you a few actual use cases coming up just to hopefully clear things up. But I think the key is you should be using it and not just trusting what other people think. And to be honest, I was actually just going to do some real examples, but I think the DeepSeek people, the server was so clogged that I couldn't even log in right now to do some more examples. But it's good to think about the theory first before you dive into that. So maybe it's better to save that for the next video and do some real live use cases. Okay, so let's talk about DeepSeek and some ideal use cases. And again, this is directly even from ChatGPT. So it's amazing. You could use it for mathematical problem solving, for example, developing an educational tool that assists students with complex mathematical equations and concepts. So, kind of like a virtual tutor or something, it would already be able to assist them with things like homework and a lot of stuff built in without needing other database or any other information. It should be able to do this out of the box with the R1 model for a much cheaper price than using the OpenAI. It could even be free if you downloaded it on your computer. And for programming assistance, it could create a code helper that aids developers in writing and debugging code across various programming languages. And I've been doing this and testing a lot of AI agent coders, and they're amazing. So pretty soon I'm going to test DeepSeek R1 and see if I can code some real examples and compare it to OpenAI or Claude Anthropic and just see how it stacks up. Now, even if it isn't quite as good, it doesn't really matter if it's much cheaper. I'll just start building way more and maybe then just at the end getting one of the better models to fix or solve some of the issues. But again, I haven't tried it, so I can't answer. This is more of a theoretical concept at this point, but this is what even ChatGPT says it would be comparable at these specific tasks. And then we'll talk about some ideal use cases for OpenAI and their API. And it says semantic search and information retrieval, and which is just really, again, going back to the chatbot example for e-commerce, when you need to really understand queries and deeply and provide product recommendations based on nuanced customer preferences. So really it stores it differently, and apparently you can get better answers with the data for your trained model or fine-tuned model or your embedding. So I don't know. I haven't tested this, so I'm going to actually have to try it. There would be different ways to get around this again with DeepSeek, but out of the box, this would be more difficult, and you can't do it through the API. But it should also be better at things like content generation, and even it says producing human like articles, summaries, or translations. So this is going to be a good test to try later using OpenAI and comparing it to DeepSeek, because everybody understands an article or summary or translations or something like that. So I think a summary will be a good way of testing it and writing some human like articles based on some research, and then we can compare the results. So this is just a basic overview and the differences and some things that you might not have known about DeepSeek, or you've never even heard about it. So give DeepSeek a try at least, and I think it'll be around to stay, unless we're going to find out for some reason it does not live up to the hype. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, you should also check out my website cartario.com, where we make custom AI or images of people, fine-tuned models. That's my brother there. This is an AI influencer. You can just create models like you do, or no, you can create images like you do with DALL-E 3. You just put in a prompt and generate an image, or you can make your own images and models of yourself, your products, or even AI influencers, or even your pets, and they look amazing. And if you want to follow me, check out aigrowthguys.com and put in your email address on the link below. And we will see you next time.